just the invention of the political compass and its popularization is,
Yeah,
I think, the perfect step to bring people from a sort of unidimensional how left or right are you
right.
into just one literally one dimension more complex, in a
Yeah,
very accessible way to sort of, because now anyone um, growing up knows what a political compass is, as like whether they're 14 and they don't actually understand what that means in practice or not.
right,
They're familiar with the idea of the orthogonality, or like the unrelatedness of being economically controlling and socially controlling.
right,
And so there is this sort of like, okay, we can add one piece more nuance now, and
right.
that can serve as a little bit of a bridge into thinking maybe there's more than just left versus right. um, and I think a lot of it may well be the case that a lot of social progress, if you actually want to incite it, will come about by means of people who are able to find what that system is that can be brought to the masses, that is only one dimension more complex than what people are familiar with.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you try to start talking about, like, you know the idea of the viability, the political viability of, say, that autocracy of a lotto government or a lottery government,
Yeah,
like they used to have in Athens, and for certain positions in Rome, like that was a thing that people did so that you could never predict who was going to be the most powerful person. So you can never
mm,
pre-plan a coup,
right,
so that you can never like bring enough power to yourself in quick enough time to cement yourself as the all-powerful dictator or whatever. Um, the moving just a little bit to touch on why that's a thing worth considering is the idea
mm-hmm.
that, I mean, just the example of, well, corporations would have to figure out, and like the politicians would have to, they wouldn't know who to market to, whereas opposed to making themselves palatable to the current president, they'd have to market themselves to whoever might be president.
Right,
They'd have to come up with policies and a sort of posture towards all of us,
yeah,
which, like, wait a second, we don't want corporations having to make themselves available to all of us, politicians making themselves amenable to everyone at once. um, but that's an example of the sort of thing that is, while people who are probably downloading your podcasts are going to be able to grapple with whether they agree or disagree with that viability, they're going to be able to say, I see what you're saying and I agree, I see what you're saying, I disagree.
right.
For the vast majority of people, that's just going to be dismissed out of hand. That is too many dimensions, too many like paradigms shifted.
I agree. That's super well said, and it creates an environment where people can't like unleash their passions and hatreds for various things, because it's like, yeah, if it's just going to be a random, if it's going to be someone in South Dakota one week and the next week it's going to be someone in New York and then it's going to be Florida and then Tennessee, you can't, it you reach a point of diminishing returns where you end up putting in more effort than is worth it to be angry at or happy about something that will literally change within a matter of days. So yeah, it's a really good point. It's so interesting too that it's like, going back to the political compass for a minute. I took it too, and I ended up somewhere in the bottom right, which is basically,
For people unfamiliar, is the economically permissible and socially permissible quadrant.
I saw a bunch of other friends who were taking it and posting their results, and it's interesting too to see how I feel like, I mean, I could be wrong, but I feel like what I sensed with just looking at like people's comments on my own or like other friends and stuff like that, I feel like it was kind of a situation where if people saw like, oh, like so and so got similar results, like I knew I was right, or like I got the right answer because they got the right answer too, or whatever, and then you see someone else who gets something different, and if it doesn't create that moment of pause in someone to like think about, oh, like I actually respect this person, or I know that like I enjoy hearing from this person's views, but they think so differently from me, like how can that be? I just find that so interesting that it's still, like you said, even though things might just be like one dimension different, or people can get any result, but they're still kind of looking at it through this binary view of like this person is right and this person is wrong. So yeah, it's really interesting stuff.